On this day, for the 4th of July, I'm reminded of our historic legacy, many statues that are erected that are dedications and symbols for those that were the worst of Americans, slave traders, Ku Klux Klansmen, even General Edmund Pettus of the Edmund Pettus Bridge or Grand Wizard. We are reminded in so many of our thoroughfares and public spaces of those that were on the wrong side of history. I think there's now a great opportunity to not only remove, but to replace and restore. We should focus, in my opinion, on those statues that need to be erected, those persons that without any self-interest, but for moral and for reasons of conviction and reasons of compassion, were bigger than their era, bigger than their time. When I think of the 4th of July, I think of the case that preceded American independence in 1776. It was not based upon taxation without representation. It was because of, in large part, gentleman Granville Sharp in the United K, a prolific writer, theologian, who took on the case of James Somerset. James Somerset had been kidnapped from West Africa, brought to the United States, was trained to be the valet, if you will, for this slave owner. Was taken to the UK. At that time, the UK did not want the Americans bringing their African-American slaves over there, because after they saw freed Africans, their attitudes changed. So they said, please don't bring those persons over here, but he did. And Mr. James Somerset, having had a taste of freedom, ran away. He was captured, and Mr. Stewart had him put on his ship. Anne and Mary is the name of the ship, Captain Knowles. He was to be sold, sent back to Jamaica, and be broken. Mr. Granville Sharp, who had befriended Mr. James Somerset, filed habeas corpus, the first time that an African body was able to go before the British courts as having a body, being recognized as human, a soul, if you will. And that case was decided by Lord Mansfield in the Somerset versus Stewart case. That was decided in June 22nd of 1772, 4 years before the 4th of July, when America finally got the word that they could no longer enslave African Americans as a part of the British colony, that the colony was going to get out of the slavery business. When most of the wealth in the United States was tied to this free labor, centuries of free labor, when people could no longer do with African Americans what they wanted in the eyes of the British law. This is what set the foundation for July 4th of 1776. The Frederick Douglass letter came 76 later, but it was economic, it was foundation. People were not willing to give up their wealth that they were getting for free. If you have any business where you don't have to pay labor, you will be wealthy. Take that to today, the 4th of July. We are living in America in a pandemic with an epidemic of racism and financial calamities going on. And that same blood-sucking spirit, I tell you, is what is on the edge of the NCAA right now. Why haven't they called the season? Why are they going to jeopardize the health and safety of these young men that they say they are here in school to educate? But in fact, they're exploiting them and making funds and millions of dollars off of them. They're willing to jeopardize these young men's lives. It's that same cruel level of inhumanity. And they want to say in the back of their minds, but it's the economics. Our towns cannot do without it. Those young men haven't created the debts. Those young men aren't getting paid the salaries. Those young men should not have their lives held in the balance so that others can profit off of them more. So I want to thank the abolitionist spirit for those persons who have yet to have statues erected. I want to look at what work we have to do to bring the Spirit of God and Christ forward and to exalt those that were bigger than their times, who always believed in freedom and justice and love and peace for all.